Hey everyone, welcome back to the Simple Electronics podcast, and I'm your host, Dan from the Simple Electronics YouTube channel. And today I've got, nobody special with me. It's just me again. I've been really busy this week, so I didn't really get a chance to ask someone to come on to the podcast. I have a couple of people that are sort of like waiting for a good time to come on, but yeah, it's all on me. I totally forgot to reach out to somebody. And I mean, I've been really busy. As you probably could tell from the title of this podcast, I'm back at school teaching. So I couldn't be any happier. I've got a little bit of semblance of some normalness and stability in my life recently because I started working again. We've got a brand new group of students. It's looking really good this year. Whole bunch of people who are interested, they're engaged, they're doing their work really diligently. They ask questions like crazy because they are extremely interested in what they're doing. So it just makes it so much easier to teach when you've got that sort of back and forth energy. We've gone over kind of the basics with them, sort of. Actually, this is week 2. So in the first week, what we did was we gave them some lectures on shop safety, how to handle yourself in an automotive shop, where the fire extinguishers are, first aid kits, those kinds of things, how to work with chemicals. We used a lot of chemicals. Talked about the type of equipment you need to work in a shop. So, steel toe boots, safety glasses, hearing protection, gloves, those kinds of things. And then we show them, what tools are, what are the names of the tools, how to use them and stuff like that. It's all just basic introductory things for now, because a lot of these people have never seen the inside of a garage. That's kind of like the point of this program that a colleague and I put together, is to turn students into, bring them from the 0 point that's never been, sort of underneath the hood of a car, up until the point where they are employable, where they have enough knowledge that they can just sort of join the trade and start their learning adventure. A lot of us in the trade, we've had either our own experience on our own cars, or maybe a father figure or a shop class, stuff like that, to sort of get us started. And a lot of these students didn't have that. And so it's sort of like me and my colleague's job to kind of instill to them the very, very basics and bring them up to snuff so that they're employable. They're not going to be experts at everything, but they'll at least have seen a little bit of everything. They'll have seen what a car looks like underneath. They'll have known, the names of the components of the cars. So it's really exciting to grab someone from a zero knowledge and turn them into, something very useful, give them skills that they can themselves sort of invest in and make themselves even better. So I'm really happy to be back at work. I'm also going to be thrilled when the paychecks start coming in. So times will be a little bit less sort of lean around here, which is nice, even though I need to kind of continue to live lean because, as a lot of you know, there's probably a, looming recession coming. And I only have a contract for 14 weeks of work. Now, they told me, obviously, that there'll be more opportunities coming up in the future, but they've said that before, and programs got canceled and all sorts of things. So, yeah, I'm not relying on it, but for now, I'm feeling good because I have at least 14 weeks of work. And if I keep up with the YouTube stuff, and especially with the sponsored content, I'll be able to save up some money, and maybe the lean times won't be as lean this time as they were last time. Speaking of which, while I have most of the user retention or the viewer retention here at the sort of beginning portion of the video, or podcast, I should say, I do need to ask, what kind of content do you folks prefer to watch? Now, I guess I could narrow this down into sort of bigger categories, but like, do you folks like to watch teardowns, mailbags? Do you guys want like base circuits? Do you want like a 101 series? I guess I just need to know where I should probably be focusing my effort to maximize sort of the amount of hours that I can spend on the channel and get the most out of it. Because at the moment, I'm just kind of following my whims, and my whims are bringing me to like scattered places. Sometimes actually very scattered, and sometimes very focused in narrow fields. And I think on YouTube, being focused in narrow fields sort of limits growth potential. So I'll give you an example so it's more concrete. At the moment, I am sort of going nuts with mechanical keyboard switches. So I have a whole pack of these red linear switches, which some of you have seen in a recent mailbag video. And I've designed a macro pad along with an Arduino, I think it's the 32U4 microcontroller. So an Arduino Pro Mini in this case. Pro Micro in this case. And so I designed this macro pad. I had to build a frame for it, which is 3D printed because the switches mount to a frame and not to the PCB. And I built a little standoff for it, and I have the PCBs ordered from PCBWay. I've actually got a prototype sitting in my hands right now. And these things are awesome. Like, I love these switches because they feel much better than the like tactile dome switches. And if people want them clicky, they can get clicky ones. If people like heavier ones, there's heavier ones, there's lighter ones. There's all sorts of different, customizations you can do to it. So I built this macro pad, and although it's going to work exactly as planned, it's actually, it's got me bit. Like I feel like I should be designing more. I want to design more. So I ordered some RGB LEDs, really compact ones. They work like NeoPixels, but they're much smaller, and they kind of shine through keyboard switches, so they're specifically for that. I also ordered these hot swappable sockets, so you can actually slot the key switches in, which means you can change the type of key switch you use, or it means you can use the same key switches in more than one project. And so now I'm at the point where I'm probably going to have a second macro pad design before I even release the video for the first one. So that means that if you're following along at home, yes, there's more availability. You'll be able to make whichever one you want. But at the same time, that's two videos kind of earmarked for one subject. Whereas if I focus my efforts a little bit and, make more diverse topics, I have a better chance of growing the channel. So I guess I really would like to know, what kind of videos do you come to my channel to see? If it's just whatever I do, like whatever whims I have, then I can just keep going as is. But if there's something you want me to focus down on, then let me know. I really should be doing the beginner series. And the reason for that is because the beginner series has more broad appeal. So it's something I can work on now, and it'll probably get views, in a year or two. It'll keep growing, which is, a couple of my videos are performing like that. But at the same time, I get a little disappointed when I put out a video like the kit build, the Steph Piper cat kit build, where I think it's a fantastic kit and I build it up and I really want to help her sell kits. And then, I only get like 300 views on it. So it's a little disappointing. Same thing with a beginner series. If I put effort into a beginner series, when the video comes out, it'll probably only get a couple of hundred views, because if you're on my channel, you probably already know the sort of very beginnery stuff. So it takes months and months and months to garner those views to draw in the people. So yeah, that's why I haven't really been gung-ho on making the beginner series, but I do really want to do it. And in fact, I already do have a beginner Arduino series that just needs to be expanded upon. Now, the benefit of the beginner series, though, is I could work on it on my lunch breaks at the college. I have about 40 minutes that I can, dedicate to writing articles because I have to let my voice rest. But I have my laptop with me, so I can, write articles on my website. And those articles really help sort of organize my thoughts for beginner type videos. And so I suppose I could put in some work, on lunchtime. But I also have to figure out, the logistics and how I want to explain it and whatever. So yeah, I'd like some feedback from you guys. What do you think? What do you think you want to see on this channel? And I'll try to work on that kind of stuff. As for projects, well, I haven't really stopped doing projects. It's just that they don't advance as quick as they used to. So for example, a viewer of mine that just joined the channel, I think he's the first and only YouTube channel member. He was offering to send me some control boards for 3D printer, which I was pretty excited about because I have that custom 3D printer I've been working on. So I've decided that I would fire Fusion 360 back up and continue to work on the design of the parts. There's a few parts I have to modify. So that means that I've been working in Fusion again, and at some point we should be ready to see the sort of the main frame of it and my tensioning mechanisms and stuff like that. So at some point, this 3D printer will be ready to show you guys, but just not ready to print yet. I'm still missing a couple of pieces, which are coming in a mailbag very shortly. And I also have to custom order a glass sheet for the bed. So that's going to cost quite a bit. And I think with inflation, there's real inflation and then there's profiteering inflation. I think a lot of industries are just artificially inflating prices. I believe the tempered glass will be affected by that. So I'll have to see what I can do about that. But basically, I need a big piece of tempered glass, and that'll have to be, custom ordered. And I have to make sure it's going to be thick enough that it doesn't sag in the middle. That'll be problematic. So I think the first things first, I'm going to finish the basic control scheme, like the XY carriages, the tensioners, and all that kinds of things. Fix the geometry, which I still need to work on. And then from there, design the carriage that holds the hot end and the direct drive mount. And then instead of sort of planning for the bed, maybe I'll just use a piece of plywood for the bed just to show off the general design of the thing. And then I can make a video talking about my frame, how I chose to make it, work, how my pieces come together, the geometry. I'll basically introduce the project on video because I haven't done that yet. I've only really talked about it on the podcast here and in passing on the mailbag videos. And then I can start installing the sort of the hardware, the electronics portion of it. And once that's running, then I can do a video on that. And then once the electronics are running, I guess there's no other reason why it shouldn't just be able to print after that. And that's when I'm going to order the tempered glass sheet. And so maybe that's what I'm going to do. I'm already working on the tensioning mechanisms, which have to replace my corner brackets. It's a whole thing. You guys will see when I make the video. But this is where sort of my Fusion 360 skills are at kind of their limit. A lot of people can design things in CAD and have all the pieces working together and assembled together in CAD. I haven't learned how to make assemblies yet. And so that's really costing me some time. So I might even slow the design down just so I can relearn a couple pieces of the CAD so I can try to build assemblies in CAD, and maybe that'll be helpful for, designing things around it. Because at the moment, I'm basically working from measurements. Whereas if I would have, designed the 2020 extrusions and put them in CAD, then it could have, sort of designed around it instead of just by measurements and trial and error. So I guess that's what's going to happen is that, shortly I'm going to plan to have a video ready introducing the large format 3D printer and sort of explain the plan and have it all sort of working on paper. And then I can start installing the electronics, and then I can start, dealing with, maybe getting it to print the first prints. So yeah, and again, if you're excited to see how that's going to work, make sure to let me know about that, because again, feedback is key on these kinds of things. The next thing I need to work on is the basic solar setup. I've got all the pieces to make a solar power setup, but there's just one problem, and that is that I need a way to bring wires from outside my house to inside my house without permanently drilling anything. So I need to run really long wires from the far end of my backyard to my house, and then inside my house and my workshop. And I want to do that in a way that I don't have to drill through my wall. I really don't want to. I'm not a fan of modifying things in a way that I can't just revert it back. And so this is what's stopping me from doing that video. Now, I was thinking I might just be able to put everything out in the backyard and then have it working in the backyard while it's still nice weather. But again, I don't want the batteries to like overheat out in the sun. I don't want my connections to rust. And honestly, the power that I'll be generating, I want to use inside my workshop here. So I'm just a little, I'm a little hesitant to set it up outside, even though I guess I could set it up just for the video. But I mean, the premise is simple. All you really need for a home solar setup is a solar panel. I recommend 100 watts because you can grow your system by adding other 100-watt panels. You need a deep cycle battery. If your budget is low, you get a lead acid battery. Make sure it's a deep cycle battery, but they're not ideal. If you have a reasonable budget, you can get a lithium iron phosphide battery, LiFePO4. And then you need a charge controller. The cheaper ones are PWM. So they basically just pulse, and they just pulse the power to charge the battery. The more expensive ones are MPPT, so maximum power point tracking. And what they do is they'll actually adjust the output voltage and current in order to maximize the efficiency of your solar panels. And so between those three items, you can get a solar setup for like $200. You basically buy a small lead acid battery, a small PWM controller, and a 100-watt panel, and then you mount it on some piece of wood in your backyard, and you got yourself a cheap home solar setup. In order to have a little bit more use out of it, though, you should aim for about a 100 amp hour battery and an MPPT controller. So that ends up being somewhere around $350 here in Canada, probably about $300 in the States. But then you have a very useful solar setup if you're going to use DC power. If you want to use AC power, like plugging in, loads like regular house loads, then you need a inverter. And you probably want a couple thousand watts, probably like 1,500 watts or so. And that's another $100. So you're looking at about $450 to $500 Canadian, about $400 American. And then you can grow it from there. Now, it's debatable whether or not that $400 setup is really something that you can rely on, because with 100 amp hours in a battery, you don't really have a lot of capacity. So you wouldn't be able to run something like a fridge overnight, for example, but it is enough to sort of run small things, LED lights, outdoor sound system, stuff like that. So it's really, the basic thing is really easy to put together. And that's what I want to make a video about. I just need to think of, sort of a bunch of loads, like what kinds of things you would run with that. And I think a perfect example for me as a pool haver, unfortunately, I would never suggest that you run a pool because it's really expensive. You can actually run a small pump off solar to just continue to circulate and filter your pool during the day when the electricity is expensive. And then you let the wall plug, like the regular 230 volts or 110 volt pump, run at night when the electricity is cheaper. So you would have like a second smaller pump with a second smaller filter to filter your pool water during the day. We don't let our pool pump run during the day because we can't afford it. It's like electricity is double the cost during the day. So having a little pump would just, keep everything circulated. Another thing you can probably do is you can have an automated vacuum. Like we have this thing called a Creepy Crawly that just sort of uses the pump vacuum to sort of pulse it around, and it just sort of auto vacuums the bottom of your pool. You could probably get like a smaller version, like a spa version, and run it off completely off solar. So again, you're paying $450, yes, but at the price of electricity here, I mean, I'd have that paid off in probably about 2 years, or it's just an extra cost, but you get more done because you don't have to, use the electricity during the day. Another thing it's good for is when there's power outages. We had a power outage here recently, and if I had a reasonable inverter, I would have been able to run the fridge on and off for, the 2 days that we didn't have power. I could have at least run the fridge another couple hours a day off the single solar panel. So that would have been great to have, but the only part I didn't really have during the power outage is the inverter. So I have the batteries, which I found in the trash for free, which was awesome. I have the solar panel, which Banggood sent me, but I mean, you can get a 100-watt solar panel for $100. And a PWM charge controller is really not expensive. It's like literally $30. So that's the point of the video. I want to show that it's actually fairly easy to make this system, and then you can scale it using the same equipment, right? If you need more capacity, you add more solar panels and more batteries. If you need more AC power out of it, then you add either more inverters or you upgrade to a bigger inverter. Another thing I've been thinking a lot about is I used to mess around with remote control cars quite a bit, off-road cars. I mean, these are things with, we're not talking about like toy grade stuff. We're talking about hobby grade stuff. So it's basically, it's like a remote control toy, except that all the parts are replaceable. You can buy replacement parts for everything, and you kind of run them pretty hard, so stuff really does break. So it's like a scaled down regular car. What I have here, I have this brand called HSP, which is like a generic Chinese brand. It's actually not great. And the issue with HSP is a lot of the parts are very fragile. Like they have this cheese grade aluminum that holds up the suspension. And with the lightest of breezes, you bend those things in half. Like it's terrible. And so I got mine all set up and tuned, and then I ran it into a curb. That's a story for another day, maybe. But anyways, it was too far away for me to see, and I ran it into a curb towards me. And it bent it in half, and it broke a whole bunch of pieces to the point where it was going to be really expensive to rebuild it again. So I've been looking, and actually I found on AliExpress I can get the whole kit, and take the parts that I have upgraded and take them off my broken kit and put it onto this. And it's about $100, which is not too bad. But the thing is that I don't really want this exact car anymore. I want something made a little bit better, made a little bit tougher. So I've been looking at what kind of kits there are out there. And honestly, anything I'm finding is really, really expensive. Like, for example, there's a company called Team Associated. So if I want to buy one of their kits, just the base kit you got to put together, and you have to supply your own motor, speed controller, batteries, which is fine. I've got all that here. Locally, it's $700. Yes, the kit is higher quality than the HSP one, but still $700. That's so expensive. And that got me thinking, there's probably a lot of people in my position. They want something they can just take out for a bash. It's called bashing when you take out your remote control cars just to take jumps and have fun. But they don't have the money for just a chassis, right? That costs $700. That's so much money. There's alternatives. I mean, you can buy a Traxxas e-Revo. So it's kind of bigger. It's about 8th scale. The ones I'm talking about are 10th scale. But the e-Revo is like $800 also. It's like insane how expensive these things are. And especially I'm thinking of kind of the younger folks or the folks that just want to try it out for fun. It's just not achievable. That's really expensive. So this has been on my mind for a while now. Not only that I can't just, go outside with an RC car and have a play like I could in winter with the snowspeeder. So now I'm thinking of designing a open source RC car that you can 3D print. So there is such a project already. I think it's called the Open RC. They have a design and it looks all right. But I feel like I want to build a universal sort of design, and I also want to build something that's a lot stronger. So those of you that like researching things while listening to podcasts, if you go look up the HPI Savage. So HPI is a company that makes these remote control monster trucks, and the Savage is one of their models. Now the Savage, if you look at a typical RC car, it's like a horizontal chassis, like a horizontal chassis plate, and everything's kind of built up on top of it. And it's no different on the snowspeeder. The snowspeeder is like a flat platform and everything kind of sits on top. But the thing with the snowspeeder is because it is made out of 3D printed plastic, it has quite a bit of flex because that plate is flexible. The HPI Savage, however, it has vertical plates. And I'm thinking if I can design this remote control chassis with a pair of twin vertical plates. So you would print them flat, right? You'd print two of them. They would be mirrored left and right. And then the parts that would support all of the, electronics and the suspension and whatever were a series of, also flat plates that you would bolt between these main side plates. That would mean that we could have sort of like, it'll be like a box. The whole thing would be made like a box. So you'd get the structural stiffness in the sort of the XY direction, and you'd get it, in the X direction. You'd also get the stiffness in the Y direction. And on top of that, it could be modular. So that if you want to put, let's say, a bigger motor, you can keep the exact same vertical plates and just design new horizontal plates, or, you know, the ones that go left to right. And then you can bolt those together and you can switch out configurations. You would just make, you know, a bigger plate, put a bigger motor, and there you go. I'm also thinking of the suspension pieces in the front and in the back where the differentials are housed. They would be bolt-on as well. And so if you need to service this thing, you just unbolt it, pull the whole front section out, do work to it, and then bolt it back in. And if you want to change the configuration, then you just design a new piece that bolts into the back. So, you know, you could, for example, design tank treads just by using a different front and rear suspension component plates or modules or whatever. So this has my brain just firing on all cylinders. I want to design a sort of modular chassis that turns into an RC car. You assemble like sort of like IKEA, right? Like a bunch of flat plates that you mount together using fasteners and some odd joinery. And you can have like multiple configurations depending on what you want. And I'm even thinking like, for example, I could use that as the basis of the snow speeder, right? The rear suspension could have 2 skis. The front suspension can have a single ski. And then the rear suspension section also has a place to mount the fan. So it can make a snow speeder. And then in summer, I can unbolt the front section, unbolt the rear section, and bolt on front and rear sections to make it into a monster truck, for example. You can, have the whole thing sit on a floating chassis to make a boat, right? The motor mount would sit and the shaft would go down instead of a differential to a propeller. So I've got this in my head, and again, I think I need to learn assemblies in Fusion, because then I would design all these things as assemblies, and then I can 3D print each piece, and then I can also offer the Fusion designs for anyone who wants to build their own adapter pieces. What do you guys think? Would you guys like to print some of these things? Like, would it be fun if all you had to buy was sort of like a motor, speed controller, a radio receiver and transmitter, a couple of batteries, and, some bearings, and then you have a mostly 3D printed sort of customizable chassis? Because the thought of that really excites me at the moment. It's just that I do need to sit down and think about it, because I feel like once I make the sort of vertical plates, I want them to be universal enough, have enough mounting points that you can sort of use it for your own needs. So hopefully this is coming across, and hopefully some of you are as excited as I am about this. And, if you are an actual engineer, or if you're an actual pro at using Fusion, feel free to reach out, because I'll probably need help. And if you have ideas you want me to implement, let me know before I start designing, so that, I can sort of design in the spaces to do that. I'm thinking that the plates that will go from left to right, and not the vertical plates, they will be attached, with a recessed hex or something, and then you bolt it from the outside. I don't know. I have lots of ideas. And if you guys are excited to see that, also let me know in the comments, so I know. Little update on the human malware situation. It seems like most of the world has moved on. Nobody at my college wears masks anymore. Just seems like just me. But we are now 7 months after I caught it, and I'm still having issues breathing intermittently, mostly when I'm stressed or have anxiety. So that hasn't passed yet. So I'm still wearing my mask. Still testing negative on the tests, which is good. I have no other symptoms, just really hard breathing every once in a while. So things like recording this podcast, I'm having to stop pretty often to catch my breath a little bit. When I have a guest, it's not so bad because they take some time talking, and so I can sort of recover, and I just mute my microphone when I'm like breathing heavy, trying to catch my breath. But yeah, 7 months now I guess a little bit less than 7 months, from the end of December up until I'm recording this on the 5th of July. So still no signs of stopping. I've actually done some research, and there's some people that have been well over 10 months with the long human malware symptoms. So I'm not too worried at the moment, but I guess over time it is sort of, it's not helping that I talk for a living, whether it be on the YouTube channel, on the podcast, or in the classroom. And so having to catch my breath all the time really isn't all that fun. Another thing I am taking suggestions on is I'd like to leverage my sponsorship with PCBWay to try to make some people's lives a little bit easier. So if there are projects that you could have in your life that would make your life easier, let me know. I'm taking suggestions for what kind of projects to build for my PCBWay sponsorship. And so obviously I'm not a electronics engineer. In fact, I'm still just very much a hobbyist. So if the project is way too complex, I won't be able to take it on. But if there are some cool things that you'd like to see come to life, I drop them in the comments, because I'll probably be perusing that for quite a while to see if I'll pick up those projects to make. And obviously, I won't be able to send you the finished product because shipping is prohibitively expensive, but you'll be able to freely use my designs and order your boards. It should cost you about, depending on the size of the board, but most of the times $5. You probably get about 10 boards for that. And then the shipping, depending on the shipping speed, is going to be another it's $5 plus about 15 for shipping. So 20, 25 bucks, something like that. And you'll get boards to your door. Then all you have to do is assemble them, and then you're good to go. Now, if you really need something made, and you don't have the skills to sort of solder it yourself or order parts or whatever, feel free to contact me. I might take on some more commission projects, but the thing with commission projects is you're going to have to work around my schedule. If it's something you're in a rush for, I would suggest you probably go find someone else, like maybe on Fiverr or some sort of marketplace like that. But if you're not in a hurry and you'll accept that it's probably not going to be cheap, feel free to hit me up and I'll see what I can do. I mean, it never hurts to ask. My email is pretty easily findable. And who knows, if the project is inspiring, like if I feel like tackling it, then you get a board designed for free, basically. Your only cost is that I'm going to make a video about it. So there's that, and then you can order it and build it. Also, if you want to sell my designs commercially, hit me up too. We can work something out. But at the moment, I don't really have the infrastructure to sell PCBs. If if you want to buy some of my extras that you see in a video that I have extras of, I can maybe piece together a kit for you. But I really don't have the infrastructure to make a store. And so if you want to buy kits from me, it's probably not going to happen. Probably the best way to get a kit from me is to show up at a maker fair while I'm there. And I'll usually have free kits to give out if you recognize the logo on my shirt, my logo on my shirt. I realize there's a lot of you that want to buy kits off me to support me. It's such a hassle to ship from Canada because it's very expensive. I have to find all the pieces, put it together, put it in a baggie, find a box the correct size, then go to the post office and pay for it. And don't forget the shipping. I almost guarantee you, any size box I send, the minimum price is going to be like $10 or $11, even just going to the States. And then more so, it's going to be probably more like $15 to $20 to get it with insurance and, tracking. And then if you want to, actually support me, you have to pay more than that. And so I'll end up sending you a kit and it's going to cost you like $40. And, I just don't feel right selling you a kit for $40 when half of that is going to the shipping company. And, you could have just ordered the boards yourself and the parts for usually way cheaper than that. So, not only do I not have the infrastructure, but it's not something that I would enjoy. Now, if you want to email me and tell me you like one of my designs or whatever, the feedback is always appreciated. I get the odd comment here and there that are just incredible, where the people are saying they really love what I do and they love my videos and whatever. And those are the types of comments that, warm my heart and they keep me going. So if you guys are doing that kind of stuff, I love it. But if you're hitting me up to buy kits, I just don't have the infrastructure for it, Speaking of no infrastructure, I actually have a merch store on Teespring, which I think I'm going to shut down. It's like, it's low effort because I made designs and you can go buy the designs on Teespring and then I just get a commission. I even lowered the cost of the objects of the t-shirts because I found that they were really expensive for what they were. So I dropped the price, which obviously only drops my end of the commission, right? The Teespring keeps they keep their commission high, of course. But I've sold 4 at the beginning when I released them. A single person bought 4, or was it 2? I don't remember. And then I never sold any more. And that was like 2 years ago at this point, or maybe a little bit more. So it's clear that you guys aren't into merch, which is fine, by the way. I can't afford merch. I can't see why you guys would be able to either, or at least see the value in it. So I might just shut down Teespring because it's just not working. And maybe at some point I'll be able to sell like ebooks or something because I do love writing. It's just I need to, write enough to actually finish something for once. I'm starting to feel my voice leave me once again. I just wreck it all the time, talking to the students, especially in the loud garage. So I feel like I have to wrap it up. But this feeling of maybe a slight amount of comfort obviously comes thanks to my wonderful Patreon patrons. I have asked before if you guys wanted to be named, and I think the majority said they didn't really care for it. So you know who you are. Also, thanks to my viewers who make an audience enough for me to garner a sponsorship. And that sponsorship, the Patreon money, has really helped me get through in between my college contracts. And also for the people using my affiliate links, you guys are a source of revenue as well. More like playing around money, because I typically just leave them in the services they come from, mostly Amazon, and I just use it to order Amazon goodies. Actually, AliExpress is becoming a fairly big one too. They don't really pay out quickly. It takes a very long time, and every time you take money out of it, they charge you a $25 withdrawal fee. So it's kind of steep, but I'll soon be pulling out my first payment, which should end up just over $200 US. And for a group of people, buying relatively inexpensive items, that's quite a few orders from quite a few of you. I really wish that the affiliate schemes gave me an indication of who is ordering, because I would just like to thank whoever is using my links to do their shopping, because it does make a pretty big difference. Although I'm not convinced that the people using my links are the ones listening to the podcast, because I feel like the podcast listeners are among the minority here. So, if it's one of you, though, I thank you very much for that. And of course, the commenters, people who leave constructive comments, good comments, kind comments, everything but the, I don't know, insulting comments. I guess there's not too many, but there are some. But I feel like that's just hit and run people, right? They come in, they drop a crappy comment, and then they run. But everybody else, thank you guys so much for commenting, for watching. Some of you ended up on my wife's stream, so twitch.tv/Verowack. I thank you folks too for going in and saying hello. It's always nice to get people coming into your streams and chatting. I was supposed to do a live stream. Maybe I should get ready to do one. But yeah, at some point I probably will. So yeah, just thanks everyone for the support, and hopefully I'll have an interesting guest for you next week, as long as I don't shirk my responsibilities again. Hopefully I have someone interesting, but if not, it'll be just me until I can get used to my work schedule again. So yeah, thanks for listening, and we'll catch you on the next one.